Okay. We're recording. We're good. Excellent. Thank you so much for the introduction, Sky. Hello, good morning, lovely people from wherever you are. My name is Lisa. My pronouns are she, her. For a bit of an audio description, I'm a 5'5" white woman who is wearing a black and white mohawk today, some black t-shirts and glasses. And I am coming to you to offer this session on introducing a program, a 3-part program that I'm hoping that you'll all want to come and join. So today's session is simply talking you through what to expect, to talk about how I might deliver it, and to see if we can build a bit of a connection so that you might want to sign up. So I'm going to go and show you a slideshow. There is absolutely no audience participation today whatsoever, so you won't be called upon to answer any questions or put any in chat. But as we move through the program, I do intend it to be as inclusive as possible, and I certainly intend it to be interactive. But today's session, you just sit back and listen, and I will try and get through this as speedy as possible so that there's some time and space at the end for some questions. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, I'm hoping everybody can see that. Sky, could you just give me a thumbs up, say yes, you can see that?
Yep, it's all good.
Amazing, thank you so much. Okay, so you might be aware of the title of this talk today when you signed up, so don't take it personally. As I said, my name is Lisa Marie, and I am going to do this, to what I think of don't take it personally. So it's a phrase I think probably everyone has heard in their life, if not said it, definitely heard it. And it really winds me up. I think it's a very difficult phrase to navigate, and I would like to challenge this phrase, not simply because I feel it's a directive that we shouldn't take things personally, but I'd like to unpack it, because I think it's really important. With a seemingly innocuous phrase can be quite loaded in our world. And everything I'm sort of doing today is to sort of unpick this statement and to be able to arm you with a bit of a toolkit to be able to navigate the world differently. So we never have to use this phrase, nor we ever have to speak it ourselves. So I'm going to do some really basic, there's no trick here, some really basic outlines about how our brains work, because I love our brains. They're brilliant. They get us from A to B every day, but they're very complex and we know very little about them. So here's an example of some maths. I'm not very good at maths. I'm an artist and a designer, so maths isn't my strong point, but I do know what 2 + 2 is. Now, 2 + 2 has a very immediate answer for us. We are trained as children, and we automatically know what that answer is. I'm just going to pause for a second because I think someone might have their mic on. So it would be great if everyone could just double check if your mic's off, because I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Thank you so much. Okay, so 2 + 2, we know it's 4. And there's something about our brilliant brains that made us answer that question as quickly as possible. Speed being of the essence. We sort of know it. It's automatic for us. Now, sorry. The next slide is some maths that I definitely can't do off the top of my head. So 317 times 928. There may be some absolutely brilliant people on this call who can do that instantly. I'm not one of them. But in order for me to solve that particular mathematical puzzle, I have to use a slightly different method in my brain. It is not automatic. It is not quick. It is not instinctive. It's going to take me some time. And this is the reasons why we have to try some different methods. We have to stop and consider. We have to use what we call slow thinking. We utilize learnings that we may have developed in the past, particularly as children. We use external aids, and we ask for help sometimes. Now, it's fascinating. Seeing that puzzle really has to slow your brain down in order to compute the numbers and find the answer. It is not so quick as we had with 2 + 2. So when we look at the brain when it was going through 2 + 2 = 4, we realized that we were very instinctive, that we were using judgment, we were using an assumption, and we were using super quick evaluation. and we were being really energy efficient, actually. We were being quite reactive. Now, that's fantastic, because that's a very quick way of getting through life. And I like to celebrate both ways that the brain works. And our brains are kind of wired to respond to threat. That is an evolutionary process. We need to be able to survive. So we see if there's any threats around, and we make very quick judgments or assumptions, and we are very reactive. So when we're crossing the road and we suddenly see a car, we know that we need to get out of the way, otherwise we'd be hit by the car. So our brains learn to help us be energy efficient and keep us making lots of like mini evaluations all the time, so that we can get through life. Now, I was reading lots about the mind and the body, and the fact that the brain is part of the whole body and not something that just sits on top of our necks. But this idea of the brain being super energy efficient, now, it never does anything it doesn't want to do. And especially when we have to do our taxes or our accounts or really boring things, there's a reason why it doesn't want to do it, because it feels like the energy is better spent in other ways. So we're very good at actually conserving our energy, and we communicate in ways that also helps conserve our energy. But sometimes that doesn't quite work, and that's kind of what the talk is about. So if you think about it, we often jump to conclusions. We hear negativity, we hear judgment, we hear criticism when someone speaks. So that fast thinking brain, the 2+2 brain, is immediately taking some words that we hear, and it's very quickly identifying a threat. It's going to be super energy efficient, and it's going to go, is that a judgment? Is that a negative statement? Is that a criticism? And it starts a little feedback loop in your brain. And I think it can be talk to yourself just as much as from another person. And sometimes in modern society, we often try and find a fast track way of communicating sometimes our emotions, and we use equally fast thinking words that evaluate and make assumptions and judgment and criticism. Now, controversial, but I believe both parts are actually integral. It's not that we want to stamp out using evaluatory language. It's not that we want to not do that. We just need to be perhaps a little bit more careful about when we do the fast thinking and when we do the slow thinking, because what happens is we become disconnected from each other. So when we hear people criticize us, normally it sort of drives a wedge between us. We feel disconnected. We don't feel seen and heard. And it comes from this sort of fast thinking that we're using. And this disconnection is something that I'd love to avoid. And I'd love to be able to teach you how to notice it and become aware of it, but also then the strategies about how to avoid that disconnection. So what we say and what we hear are the sort of the two big areas that we look at when we're thinking about how we communicate with people. And the aim is to avoid this disconnect, because when we actually take things personally, it's because we're disconnected from people. And a lot of people think that when we take things personally, it's because we're too connected or we're too close. Actually, it's the very opposite that's happening, that we take things personally because there is a disconnection between us as individuals and the person in front of us. That's also true of how we speak to ourselves. You know, when we are very hard on ourselves and we have a lot of negative self-talk, there is a disconnection perhaps with what's going on inside of us. So the disconnection is the thing that we're going to strive to find our way around in these sessions. So I sort of propose a cleaner way of describing it as a language of connection, and ultimately the self-advocacy speaking, which is what I'm offering to you today, is a language of connection. It's not about being subservient or being dominant. It's very much the opposite. It is a language of equality, and it is finding ways that neither one person in a conversation or in a dialogue feels the need to compromise, that we need to back down. It's very much that both people can get their needs met within one conversation, because we've found a level of connection between us. So you might love the theory, get how the brain works, but I want to sort of go, right, how are we going to make this like concrete possible here? So when I was putting this slide together, I had some more slides about neuroscience, and a bit about psychology, and I sort of stopped and I went, actually, if you want to come on this journey with me and sign up to some sessions, we need to build a connection. It's no good me just telling you some information. So I'm going to be bold and share a little bit about myself, because I'd like you to know who I am, if you're going to trust me to sort of go on this journey together. But I'm going to do it in a way that demonstrates how I'd like our program to run, and ultimately how I'd like you to achieve something by the end of it. So to make connection, I'm going to tell you who I am. So my name is Lisa, as I've established. I come with the mohawk, that's free. But my background is quite different from safe in our world. I am a former production designer in film and TV. I was in film and television for 25 years. Until it somewhat broke me. But I got to a place where I realized that I needed to thrive and not survive anymore. So I took a massive step out and kind of reaffirmed that I am an artist, and that I am a creative being, and that I train to be a well-being coordinator for film and television, and a mental health and sleep health coach. So I train people in workplaces about sleep health, because I started realizing that actually we need to look at this wonderful creative talent, of which you're on the call too, and how I can best support them, not simply by giving them, some forms with some ticks and go and read this book and listen to this podcast, but a little bit more about understanding who you are, even from a biological and science point of view, and what it is that you ultimately need. So what I did is I started retraining in lots of different ways. So becoming a sleep health coach, understanding a lot more about well-being and mental health, and the law and the Equality Act. I trained in nonviolent communication, of which this talk is hugely inspired by. I'm trained as a coach, and I mentor a lot of people in the film and TV industry and the creative sector as well. My wife is wonderfully neurodiverse, but is also a researcher in that field. And I have done and participated in a lot of research around neurodiversity. And I much prefer the term neuroinclusion. But I'm a big advocate of whatever I can do to be an ally, but also consider looking at myself, and how I learn a little bit more about how we operate, and to try and eliminate the cognitive bias that is rife in the world. So you'll notice from this presentation that I'm giving, all the font that I'm using is a particularly dyslexic friendly font, one hopes, and trying to use colour and images as much as I can. I can always do better, and I always appreciate the feedback. But the neuroinclusion part is something that I will tackle head on as much as possible. I'm also a lecturer in sustainability, climate and social justice. That's a sort of another bit of a day job that I do. And I care an awful lot about the concept of sustainability, but it has to start with us before we can connect it to others and our environment. So I do actually sort of teach in that sector. So I sort of have had this crazy sort of career shift, and I'm offering all of my experience professionally, and all of the new training and my perspectives, to be able to support talent. So this is who I am. This is who you're going to get for 3 sessions. And because I'm a creative, I love to sort of be able to find creative ways of sharing information. I just don't believe in just giving you lots of data to have to sift through. So bear with me, go with me on this one. Okay, so hello, I'm Lisa Marie. My pronouns are she, her. There's another picture of the mohawk just for you. I am a non-disabled, openly queer, vegan, perimenopausal person going through a midlife edit, and I love all these parts of my identity. Okay, so I'm happy to talk about these things in my life. I'm not ashamed of them. I don't encourage people to have to disclose anything. That's just me, and that's who you're going to get. My communication preferences. So if you worked with me, and we were in an office together, or even actually as perhaps we're training together, I have some preferences. These are sort of, I've learned over the years what I like and what I don't like, and kind of what works with me and for me. And so I found a way of sort of describing it. So I actually really like a phone call. Called me old-fashioned. I kind of, the written word is a bit overwhelming for me sometimes. So I prefer a phone call, but please don't leave me a voice note. People that leave 17-minute long voice notes, I struggle with that. I feel like I have to write notes and sort of, revise before responding to someone. But that's just me. And actually emails, I've got very good boundaries about when I respond to emails. And also the speed which we have to feel that we have to respond. I'm going to call it out and going, no, it may take me a couple of days to get back to you. For some it works, for me it doesn't. The whole WhatsApp and being included in groups and having notifications sort of pop up on my phone doesn't work for me. So I've been able to sort of distill that. You don't have to read all of this, I'll just summarize, but I've kind of figured out what I think I need. And as I'm getting older, it may be to do with my perimenopause, or the fact that I'm just getting older and I'm slightly more tired, that I really struggle in noisy spaces. My hearing is deteriorating somewhat. So I really struggle in busy spaces, and it's something that's got more emotive for me as I've got older. So I kind of like, let's not meet in a busy bar, for example. I love face-to-face. Which is ironic given that we're doing this talk online, but that is the way it is. But meeting in person I really enjoy, and would make time and space for that. Sleep health. I naturally wake up between 8 and 8:30 in the morning. I spent 25 years in the film industry getting up at 5 a.m. and I realized what damage it did to my body. So now I'm pretty boundaried about trying to find work and a job and a career path that allows me to get up when my body is happiest and I'm most proactive, actually. So don't have a meeting at 9 a.m. with me because I might be a bit grumpy. And that I am perimenopausal, and I would really like to improve education around this for anyone who's going through these symptoms and sort of shifts in hormones. So I'm up for talking about this. So that's kind of like important that people know. This is something, if you do the course, that this will make way more sense than it probably does today. But I have a learning style that I developed through doing a sort of a crude test called the VARC test, if anyone's heard of it. And I come out as a very kinesthetic person, probably why I like to design and make things and probably want to meet you in person. So I love having all of my senses kind of like connected when we communicate. I really love active participation, like real environments and real life examples. And I'm also very visual. I score quite highly in the visual. One hopes, being a designer and artist, but I kind of really respond best to diagrams and images. Probably why this isn't just a sort of standard PowerPoint with lots and lots of text, because I think that would drive me mad. So I'm a very kinesthetic person. Okay, so you tell me something, it'll go in one ear and out the other. So I'm great at writing stuff down, but I'll photographically remember it really well. So I always ask people to give me written information, and I really, really love to take lists. I do quite like a list, but I'd love to take it and then turn it into like a really good editable document, like, finding different ways to put information in time, so calendars, and being able to kind of reorganize things in a visual way for me. So I really like data that I can then have that opportunity to put together again. And if anyone has ever worked in film and TV, you are drowning in paperwork that is quite hard to decipher. So that comes out of my career experience. Love a bullet point, love being quite direct, love a bit of clarity wherever possible. So I kind of put that information and instructions. Being in meetings, I do find virtual meetings challenging. I'm finding it hard not being able to see lots of lots of smiling faces today. I'm sure you are smiling. But I, always want to meet in person wherever possible. Agendas in advance. I love it when people feel less blindsided by meetings. I also can't stand a meeting that is completely unstructured and it ends up being chat and we end up getting to the end and we haven't actually agreed anything. So I love a good bit of structure, I think. And I'm finding that I not that I fidget, but I certainly feel that I need some props when chatting. And for me, it's just a drink. It's like a bit of a comfort thing for me. So sometimes when I'm online, I will always have a cup of tea or cup of coffee or something. So to not people think that I'm just being sort of too relaxed. That's what I need. And obviously I advocate for sustainability and climate justice. So I will sort of challenge any behaviours that I think that we could do better when it comes to climate. Okay, receiving feedback, I value it as a gift. So including this talk today and including the programme that we do, feedback is absolutely integral as to how we can continue to evolve and be better. But it's important that we give context as well, and letting me sort of process and being able to offer stuff back. I really love a feedback loop. That's really important to me, so that we don't just sort of shut things down or just throw information out there. And I really love dogs. Totally irrelevant to this chat, but I thought it might make you smile, and I do really like dogs. So put it all together in a big mess. That's me, and that's who I am. That's how many different ways you could connect with me. I'm hoping by that chat you've understood a little bit more about me. I haven't really disclosed huge amounts of personal information at all, and I haven't disclosed anything I don't want you to know, but I have hopefully made you go, I've got a sense of who Lisa is and what she likes and what she doesn't. And maybe I could navigate Lisa a bit better. Or maybe you've decided I'm not quite the right person to offer you information. It's maybe just not the right connection, and that's absolutely fine. But I want to put all this together into something that is not as chaotic as that, because that upsets me visually. And we've created something called the Human Handbook. And it's a guide to connecting with me. So we go back to the beginning of this talk, and that idea of finding the right words and sort of what we say and what we hear, it kind of really helps if we just had a little handbook about how to do that. So rather than just me asking you to sort of go away and just be better people and think of better words, we'd actually like to create something. And by the end of the 3 sessions, the aim is to sort of offer you a template or offer your own way to create something so it becomes tangible and real, this idea of communicating and also connecting with people that you work with. So this is much easier to look at, obviously, but this was me putting it together. So this is my example, my template, and it doesn't have to be for everyone. And I've put lots and lots of information in this because I needed it as an example. But if I were to show this to somebody, a guide for someone who's completely new to working with me in a new working environment, I kind of feel it's helpful for them to understand that. Now, in where I work, this is okay. In some working environments, I appreciate that it may not. And a tiny bit of this may be useful. All of it may be useful. It's entirely up to the individual and the context in which you're working or living in about this information. But the idea behind it all is like a manual of me. Okay, so you get a chance to go, what is it that I really need? And you're framing it in a positive way. It's not an excuse. It is not a sob story, so to speak. It's simply like, no, I am this. I need this. I'm offering it to you. So maybe we can connect in a better way. And again, this may not be for everybody, but there's good learning in it, even if you didn't want to create this. But the aim is for me to sort of essentially lead you through how we're going to do this. So to build it, we got to do it one word at a time. And a big part of what I do is help you find the words. Okay, that's most important. And this is where self-advocacy speaking comes in, the language of finding connection. And you may have seen some of this blurb on the sort of advert, but I will just quickly go through it again, because this is important as a context. That this is a literacy for our lives, is a language, okay? It's really important. It is a communication tool, ultimately, and it is drawn from the world of psychology, but also diversity inclusion. It works really well for neurodiverse people. We found it just seems to be more straightforward, I think, to be able to adopt and to get your needs met. And it's also, I think, a big part of resilience. It's a real improving communications is always an important part of building personal resilience as well as workplace resilience. It's a language we instinctively knew when we were young. It's not rocket science. It is something that you all used to do. I think as a coach, I believe all of you have the answers within you. I don't believe we're empty vessels that need to be filling with stuff. You have all of the tools you actually need. Sometimes it just helps when somebody can help tease it out of you a little bit and bring it to the surface and bring it out into the light. And that's kind of what we're doing. So you understand that you will have been conditioned, and I think it's honest to call it out that modern society feels like a place to survive. And I think our language has evolved because of that, as to navigate dominance, to navigate feeling vulnerable, to sort of protect yourself, to exert control, particularly in a world that doesn't feel like it's very much in control, and there's a lack of leadership, I think, globally, into how we cope with things. So I can understand why all our words and our languages have developed this way. So we're kind of trying to unpick that a little bit and basically give you tools to reconnect with what you already know. And as I say, bring it into the open for your benefit. I'm not teaching you that you should do things differently. It's just more, it's kind of hidden underneath, and let's sort of try and remind ourselves about how to do it. So any language is built from words, vocabulary, and a grammar and a structural framework. So we kind of introduce it in this method, like what words would be really helpful to you, but in what order should you say them? So we need to look at both of those parts. And I will caveat this. This is life's work, okay? I still struggle with this, but I do know how to apply it, and I try every day, and sometimes I win and sometimes I don't. And I think I'll keep doing it, trying for the rest of my life. No one ever has it's not a 10 out of 10 situation. You're not just going to be brilliant at it. It's something that you just want to be willingly trying. And once you start trying it, you role model it for others who also want to try at it. So again, this is not a world of right or wrong or expectations or trying to master something. It's simply trying to try it. And I'll tell you, when you start learning this, you start hearing the very opposite everywhere, which is a great motivator to keep trying at this. Okay. So after 3 sessions, which each will last just 60 minutes, you will understand how to advocate for your needs and make healthy and respectful connections with people. The first sessions will be in October, the second lot in November, and the final ones in December. So we split it up into 3 months, and we would like you to attend one from each month. In order to do that, we have picked 5 different session days and times to choose from in each month. So in October, there'll be 5 different days of mornings, lunchtimes, evenings, and Saturday mornings that you can pick from. We've tried to do this so that those that have work commitments, but also life commitments and caring commitments and family commitments can try and pick a time when suits you best. I'm sure there'll be some people that can't manage any of them. So we are trying to record these sessions so that if at least you can attend 1 or 2, you could always catch up on a recording with the other one. So we're trying to make this as accessible as possible. And obviously we'd always appreciate the feedback if times need to be adjusted or aren't working. But we have crib sheets, the whole thing. We have got a timetable. So hopefully you can attend most of them. The end of it in December, the aim is for you to you'll have a certificate of attendance, but you'll also have the tools and a template to be able to go and make your own Human Handbook and take that into your learning at work and develop that back into the new year. So start from a blank canvas, and the aim is for me, that's me with a Safe and Are Well t-shirt on, my mohawk, guiding you, navigating you to your needs, okay, so you can express to people how you want to connect with them. The key thing here is the word needs. I'm sure Many people have come across needs, and it's more widely discussed now than it ever has been in the past. What are needs? Well, we have physical needs. When we're thirsty, we need something to drink, we need water. When we're hungry, we eat. When we're tired, we need to sleep. But we have psychological needs as well, and that's slightly more complicated and very unique to every single individual on the planet. And so everyone will have seen an iceberg model at some point in their life. So I've navigated you to the iceberg world that is fast disappearing, but that's another conversation. But the iceberg is a brilliant method by telling us that there's bits visible up above, but there's other big stuff lurking underneath the water. And often we just only see what's on the surface, and we don't take into account what's underneath. And that's true for many. This model is used in many ways, and you may have come across it in many different guises. But ultimately, our behaviours and the words we see, the words we say, and the words we hear are up there. They're up on the top, and that's how we interface with the world. But sometimes what's underneath isn't necessarily connecting with that, and maybe it's hiding and protecting, and it's surviving underneath the water. So what's really important is that we look at our psychological needs. We look at what is kind of underneath there in order for us to communicate better the words that we want to say, the words we want people to hear. So needs are kind of like hidden underneath. They are largely universal with humans. There's actually quite a small list when psychologists all agree on it. They're quite fundamental to us as people navigating the world. So the aim is for me to work with you to start building this language that is around psychological needs. So you can see the designer in me, love to make a shape, love a triangle. So I've taken the iceberg and simplified it into a triangle model, which if you attend the program, you're going to see a lot more of this. But this is a simple diagram that you can take away today and have a think about. This is, again, what is visible and what is hidden. And the way that we approach self-advocacy speaking, and is also the foundations to nonviolent communication, is a four-stage process. So up above, we look at the observed world, our observations. We have the water, and just underneath there, bubbling away, are our feelings. And sometimes those feelings, like bubbles, pop out onto the surface, and we see them, and then we see them expressed. But they're just bubbling underneath the surface, good and bad, positive and negative feelings. But underneath that are needs, and underneath that are the requests that we need. So the aim for our job together to work towards creating a human handbook is to kind of get to that request stage, and to work through these four stages in order. So in October, we will, in the October sessions, we will look at observations, and they are behaviours that you can see or hear. They are observed, non-disputable, specific facts. Okay, they're not evaluations and judgments and criticisms. They're actually what's going on. Okay, and actually, this is kind of like one of the toughest stages, because if we think about our 2 + 2 = 4 fast thinking brain, it's sometimes hard to just go, hold on a minute, let's do some complicated maths instead of basic maths. Sometimes we need to stop and really consider what's in front of us. So the observation is kind of where those two different types of brain styles come into play. And we realize that actually through a lot of our life, we try and be energy efficient as much as possible, and we fast track to answers. But in doing so, have we really observed those non-disputable specific facts, or have we jumped to some judgments and conclusions? So that is a big part of the first session that we'll do together, because unpicking that is a really fundamental part of what we do. In that same session, we will move on to feelings. So feelings are the emotions you experience. Human beings are wonderful at mixing feelings with thoughts. So a big part of what we would do in the second half of this session in October is pick apart what a thought is and what a feeling is. It may sound really obvious and as I describe it, but you realize it's a little bit more complex. We'll also tackle rejection sensitivity dysphoria and other aspects in neurodiversity where feelings and how we kind of interact with people are not just so neurotypically discussed and straightforward, and how also to discuss and recognize feelings when we're trying to be inclusive of all as much as possible. So we won't just make it pure psychology for the normal brain, the average brain. We will absolutely start picking that apart a bit. Hopefully you'll be like, yes, bring on November. So hopefully you'll come back into November sessions, and we will go through the big bit, which is needs. It needs a full session. It's quite a big topic. And feelings are like flags waving to what the needs are inside of you. And you've been like that since you were born. It is the way we express ourselves. So sometimes we have feelings, but we actually don't understand what the need is inside. Now, this isn't in a psychotherapy way, and I'm not a psychotherapist, and this isn't therapy, but this is much more understanding some of the conditioned behaviors, I suppose, and the rationales that we have behind why our feelings might be presenting, because it's so important that you're not just communicating your feelings to people, you're communicating your needs, because that is what builds connection to others. And so trying to find the root cause of our feelings and needs is difficult and an ongoing process, and will always evolve as you evolve through life. So it's more an awareness that we're trying to build, not necessarily just a neat little list of your needs. But that's a big one, and that's probably the most crucial one to attend. And once we've identified those needs, the root cause of your feelings, we get into the request stage, which is exactly how we build the Human Handbook. So in December, the date's available, we'll be able to take all of that learning that we've chatted about together and we've explored, and be able to start going, right, how do we make this a tangible document that I can use, even if it's just for yourself? The act of writing it down for yourself may just be enough. Or we can share it with others, or share it with people that we trust and feel safe with. Or maybe it is something to think about in your workplace if you're managing teams, or even if it just leads you into conversation with people that you work with. So the requests are specific actions or connections that help get your needs met. The aim here is to get your needs met. And when your needs are met, you're more likely to build better connections with people. Okay. So when we are connected, we generate empathy. We can positively challenge and effectively eliminate bias, advocating our needs safely and meaningfully. That is the ideal. That is what we strive for. So I'm really hoping that that is what we can get you to a place of confidence by the end of our sessions. And if this isn't for you, that's totally fine. I offer this book as a reading tool. You may want to read this as well as attend the sessions. But maybe the sessions aren't quite your thing, but maybe reading a book is, and that's a better way to absorb information. So I offer this book, which was created by Marshall Rosenberg, who is the psychologist that created the concept of nonviolent communication. It is a good and helpful read. It's pretty much the only book that's worth reading about it. I don't necessarily subscribe to all of its sort of patterns and methods. I can find it a little convoluted, but for some people it may really work for you. And there's a lot of information online. So I offer that if these kind of talks aren't your thing. But obviously I would love you to attend and to see you again. So I leave you with being curious, being self-compassionate, and building connections. And I thank you for listening. And I leave you with some information. So booking your program sessions, Sky will pop in the chat the link. You can book all of the sessions between now, October and December, so you can kind of fill your diary. And also know that you can always watch recordings if there's a reason that you can't attend. So I'm going to stop my screen share and have Sky and myself join to answer anybody's questions in chat. So thank you for listening to that.